the smile that conquered fear. When death becomes familiar. The Galactic Council chamber fell silent when Ambassador Chen walked in. Not because of her rank or her species' recent acceptance into the coalition. They fell silent because she was smiling. Councillor Vexthar of the Crinian Empire felt his 3 hearts skip in unison. Humans smiled when they were happy, yes, but they also smiled when they were nervous, angry, planning something terrible, or about to deliver bad news. The expression was a nightmare for species that relied on clear emotional signals. No one could ever tell what a human smile actually meant. Honored Council, Chen said, her smile never wavering. I bring news from the frontier. The Devourers have breached the Helix barrier. Panic erupted. The Devourers were older than most civilizations in the galaxy. They were massive creatures that lived in the void between stars, feeding on starship hulls and station structures like insects eating wood. They couldn't be reasoned with, couldn't be stopped, and had destroyed 6 civilizations over the past million years. This is catastrophic, shrieked Councillor Zyn, her crystalline form flashing red with distress. The Helix barrier was our last defense. We must evacuate the outer systems immediately. Chen's smile didn't fade. If anything, it grew slightly wider. That won't be necessary, Counselor. You don't understand, human, Vexthar said, trying to keep his voice steady. The Devourers consume everything. Our greatest weapons can't pierce their hides. Our most powerful shields mean nothing to creatures that can tear through hull plating like tissue paper. Oh, we understand perfectly, Chen replied. That's why we already dealt with them. The chamber went silent again. This time, the silence was different. Confused. Suspicious. The impossible report. Dealt with them? Zyn's voice was barely a whisper. The Devourers attacked 3 days ago. We received the distress calls from Colony Theta 9. 15,000 souls lost in minutes. How could you possibly? We were already there, Chen interrupted gently. Earth Defense had stationed a mining operation in the asteroid belt near Theta 9. When the Devourers arrived, our miners were in perfect position. She activated a holographic display. The Council watched footage of the attack. Massive, slug-like creatures the size of city blocks emerged from faster-than-light travel, their multiple mouths opening to reveal rows of teeth that could grind through reinforced titanium. They descended on Theta 9's orbital platforms. Then the asteroids moved. Except they weren't asteroids. They were human mining ships, disguised and waiting. They didn't fire weapons. Instead, they released clouds of something into the void. What is that? Vexthar leaned forward, his optical sensors straining. Iron oxide, Chen said simply. Rust, we call it. Along with fragments of nickel, cobalt, and various industrial compounds. The Council watched as the Devourers swam through the clouds. For a moment, nothing happened. Then the creatures began to slow. Their movements became sluggish, erratic. Several started twitching violently. I don't understand, Zyn said. The Devourers eat metal, Chen explained, her smile never fading. They've evolved to process pure, clean metals from space debris and ship hulls. Their digestive systems are incredibly efficient, but also incredibly specialized. She paused for effect. We fed them rust. Oxidized, contaminated, dirty metal. Mixed with compounds their systems were never designed to handle. Poisoning the unpoisonable. Vexthar watched in horror and fascination as the footage continued. The Devourers were dying. Not from weapons, not from violence, but from indigestion on a catastrophic scale. Their massive bodies convulsed as their own digestive processes turned against them, unable to process the corrupted metals now filling their systems. You poisoned them, he said, his voice flat. We gave them food poisoning, Chen corrected. There's a difference. Poison implies we used something toxic. We just gave them something their biology couldn't handle. Like feeding chocolate to a dog, or giving milk to someone who's lactose intolerant, except scaled up to space monsters. This is. Zyn struggled for words. This is brilliant and horrifying. This is human, Vexthar said quietly. Chen's smile finally shifted, becoming something more genuine, almost proud. You have to understand, counselors. Earth isn't a peaceful world. It never has been. For billions of years, life on our planet has been in constant warfare. Not just between species, but within species. We have parasites that control the minds of their hosts. Fungi that turn insects into zombies. Plants that poison the soil around them so nothing else can grow. We evolved in a world where everything was trying to kill everything else in the most creative ways possible. She gestured to the dying devourers on the screen. When we joined the Galactic Council, we studied every threat in the database. We learned about the devourers' feeding habits, their biology, their behavior. And we immediately thought, how would nature on Earth deal with this? The answer was obvious: make the food dangerous. The question that changed everything. How many of them did you eliminate? Vexthar asked. All of them in that sector. 23 devourers total. We're currently tracking 3 more groups. We've already seeded their probable routes with contaminated materials. Zyn's crystalline structure dimmed. You're hunting them? Of course. They're an invasive species threatening the ecosystem. On Earth, we've learned that the only way to handle invasive species is active management. You can't just react to them, you have to anticipate their movements and eliminate them before they establish themselves. Vexthar felt something cold settle in his chest. Ambassador Chen, the Devourers have existed for over 1 million years. They've destroyed civilizations that had technology far beyond what humanity currently possesses. And you're telling me that your solution is to give them indigestion? Yes, Chen said simply. Because no one else thought to try. You all focused on building better weapons, stronger shields, faster evacuation protocols. You treated them like natural disasters to be endured. We treated them like a pest problem to be solved. She pulled up another display, showing schematics and chemical formulas. We're already working on refinements. The rust worked, but it was slow. We're developing faster-acting compounds. Within 6 months, we should be able to eliminate any devourer we encounter within minutes of contact. And if they adapt? Zyn asked. Evolution is a powerful force. Chen's smile returned, and this time Vexthar understood exactly what it meant. It was the smile of a predator discussing prey. The terrifying truth. Then we adapt faster, Chen said. That's what humans do, counselor. We adapt. We've been doing it for millions of years on a planet that kept trying to kill us in new and interesting ways. Ice ages, supervolcanoes, asteroid impacts, plagues, predators, parasites, and our own worst instincts. Each time, we adapted. We learned. We survived. And then we thrived. She closed the displays and looked directly at each council member in turn. The devourers are dangerous, yes. But they're simple. They eat metal and reproduce. They don't plan, don't innovate, don't change strategies. They're perfect at what they do, which means they're also predictable. And predictable problems can be solved. Vexthar realized something in that moment that would haunt him for the rest of his long life. The other species in the galaxy had survived by being good at 1 or 2 things. The Crinians were brilliant engineers, the Xinthians were master traders, the Velkar were unmatched diplomats. Each species had found their niche and perfected it. Humans were different. Humans were good enough at everything, and they specialized in one thing above all else: solving problems that shouldn't be solvable. They looked at impossible challenges and asked, "What haven't we tried yet?" "Is there anything else, Ambassador?" he asked quietly. "Just one thing," Chen said. "We'd like to request permission to establish research stations near other known devourer breeding grounds. For observation purposes." "Observation," Zyn repeated skeptically. "And pest control," Chen added, her smile widening just a fraction. "We've learned so much from this first encounter. We'd like to learn more. The council granted the request. What else could they do? Humanity had solved in 3 days what the galaxy had failed to address in a million years. As Ambassador Chen left the chamber, still smiling, Vexthar turned to Zyn. Do you know what frightens me most about humans? What? That smile. She never stopped smiling. Not when discussing the deaths of 15,000 people. Not when describing how to poison creatures the size of buildings. Not when planning to hunt down and eliminate every last devourer in the galaxy. He paused. I don't think she's cruel. I think that's what terrifies me. She genuinely sees all of this as just another problem to solve. And she's happy to be solving it. Zyn's crystalline form flickered thoughtfully. Perhaps we should be grateful they're on our side. Perhaps, Vexthar agreed. Or perhaps we should start worrying about what happens when they run out of galaxy problems to solve and start looking inward at council politics. Neither of them said anything more, but both of them were thinking the same thing. Humanity had just taught the galaxy a new lesson. The most dangerous species isn't the one with the biggest weapons or the strongest shields. It's the one that never stops smiling while it figures out how to turn your strengths into weaknesses. The Devourers had learned this lesson too late. The rest of the galaxy was still learning it. And humanity? They were already moving on to the next problem, smiling all the way, the smile that united stars. When gratitude becomes concern. 6 months after the Devourer crisis, the Galactic Council convened an emergency session. Not because of a threat, but because of a success. Humanity's pest control operations had been too effective. They've eliminated 94% of the Devourer population, Councillor Vexthar reported, his voice a mixture of awe and concern. In 6 months. A threat that has plagued the galaxy for a million years, nearly extinct. This is wonderful news. Councillor Meraxis of the Tefrion Combine chirped, his feathers ruffling with excitement. We should celebrate. Humanity has saved countless lives. Have they? Councillor Zyn's crystalline form pulsed a cautious orange. Or have they demonstrated a capability that we should find concerning? The chamber erupted in debate. Half the council saw humanity as saviors, the other half saw them as potential threats. Vexthar called for order, but the arguing continued until the chamber doors opened and Ambassador Chen walked in. She was smiling. The debate died instantly. The report no one expected. Honored Council, Chen began, I apologize for the interruption, but we've encountered a situation that requires immediate attention. Another crisis? Vexthar's 3 hearts sank. No, quite the opposite. We've made first contact with a new species. They call themselves the Architects, and they've been hiding in dark space for 3 million years. The council chamber erupted again. Dark space was the term for regions between galaxies, areas so empty and vast that no known species had successfully explored them. The idea that an advanced civilization had been living there, unknown and undetected, was staggering. How did you find them? Zyn asked. Chen's smile took on a slightly embarrassed quality. We were following the last devourer populations to their breeding grounds. It turns out the devourers weren't just random space creatures. They were weapons. The temperature in the chamber seemed to drop. The hidden history. The Architects created the devourers 3 million years ago, Chen explained, pulling up holographic displays. They designed them as a test. A challenge for emerging civilizations. Species that could overcome the devourers would prove themselves worthy of contact. Species that couldn't would be left to develop further. That's barbaric. Meraxis shouted. They've let thousands of civilizations die. They didn't see it that way, Chen said, her smile fading slightly. The Architects are old, counselors. Older than anything in our database. They've seen species rise and fall for billions of years. From their perspective, the devourers were a learning tool, a way to push civilizations toward innovation. And what did they say when humanity passed their test? Vexthar asked. Chen's smile returned, but this time it was different. Sadder. More thoughtful. They said we cheated. The method matters. Cheated, several counselors echoed in confusion. The architects designed the devourers to be defeated through technological advancement, Chen explained. They expected species to develop new weapons, new shields, new understanding of physics. Instead, we used chemistry and biology. We didn't fight the devourers, we poisoned them. The architects said this wasn't the kind of thinking they were testing for. So we failed? Zyn asked. No, Chen said. We passed. But we also forced them to reconsider their entire testing methodology. She brought up more displays, showing the architects' civilization. They were beings of pure energy, having transcended physical forms billions of years ago. Their cities existed in folded space, their technology was beyond comprehension, and their perspective on time made them seem almost godlike. They told me something interesting, Chen continued. In 3 million years of testing, we're the first species to approach the devourer problem from a biological angle. Every other civilization tried to out-engineer the threat. Only humans thought to use the devourer's own biology against them. The perspective of ancients. The architects want to meet with the council, Chen said. They're curious about humanity, about how a species so young could think so differently from everyone else. They asked me to explain human thinking, and I told them a story. The council leaned forward, even those who had been arguing moments before. I told them about a human named Alexander Fleming. In 1928, he discovered penicillin, the first true antibiotic. Do you know how he discovered it? By accident. He left a bacterial culture uncovered while on vacation, and when he returned, he found mold had contaminated it. But instead of throwing it away and starting over like any proper scientist would, he studied it. He noticed that the bacteria near the mold had died. He asked himself, why? And that question changed human medicine forever. Chen's smile grew warmer, more genuine. That's human thinking in a nutshell, counselors. We don't just ask, how do we solve this problem? We ask, why is this a problem, and what can we learn from it? We look at contamination and see medicine. We look at indigestion and see a weapon. We look at failures and accidents and see opportunities. The uncomfortable truth. Dexthar spoke carefully. Ambassador, some of us have been concerned about humanity's rapid problem-solving abilities. We've seen you eliminate the devourers with terrifying efficiency. Now you tell us you've made contact with beings who have been hidden for millions of years. What should we conclude from this? Chen's expression became serious. That humanity is dangerous. You should absolutely conclude that, counselor, because it's true. We're dangerous the same way a scalpel is dangerous. In the wrong hands, at the wrong time, used for the wrong reasons, we could cause terrible harm. The honesty shocked the council into silence. But here's what you should also conclude, Chen continued. We're dangerous to problems, not to friends. Earth has thousands of different cultures, hundreds of different philosophies, and billions of different opinions. But we have one thing in common, we hate seeing problems we could solve going unsolved. It frustrates us. It drives us to action. She gestured around the chamber. The devourers were a problem. We solved it. Not because we wanted glory or power, but because people were dying and we had an idea that might work. That's what humans do. We try things. We fail often, we succeed sometimes, but we always try. The offer. The architects have made an offer, Chen said. They want to share their technology with the Galactic Council. They say humanity has proven that younger species have valuable perspectives that even ancient beings can learn from. But there's a condition. Of course there is, Zyn muttered. They want the Council to establish a new division, the Problem Solvers Guild. It would be a multi-species organization dedicated to approaching galactic challenges from unconventional angles. They want humans to lead it, but they want every council species to participate. Why? Meraxis asked. Why not just share the technology freely? Because, Chen said, the architects have learned that giving technology to species that haven't learned to think creatively makes them dependent. They become solution users instead of solution creators. They want the galaxy to learn to think differently, and they believe humans can teach that. The decision. The council debated for 3 days. Arguments raged about human unpredictability, about whether unconventional thinking was valuable or dangerous, about whether the galaxy needed to change its approach to problems. On the 3rd day, something happened that made the decision for them. A distress call came from the Krynian frontier. A new threat had emerged, reality storms, tears in spacetime that were growing larger and destroying everything they touched. The Krynian Empire's best scientists estimated they had 6 months before the storms would engulf their core worlds. Humanity's Problem Solvers Guild, not yet officially approved by the Council, was already on site within hours. "We have an idea," they reported, smiling. The pattern becomes clear. 2 weeks later, the reality storms were gone. The human solution involved using the storm's own energy against them, channeling the tears in reality through artificially created weak points that allowed the universe to heal itself. It was absurd, impossible, and it worked perfectly. The council voted unanimously to approve the Problem Solvers Guild. Ambassador Chen stood before them once more, and this time her smile was joined by genuine warmth in her eyes. "Thank you, counselors. We promise to make the galaxy a better place." "That's what worries us," Bexthar said, but he was smiling too. The future of solutions. 5 years later, the Problem Solvers Guild had expanded to include representatives from 47 species. Under human guidance, they had tackled problems the galaxy had considered unsolvable. The Silence Plague was cured using modified bacteria from Earth's deep oceans, the frozen worlds were terraformed using geothermal principles from human volcanic regions, and trade route pirates were eliminated using human psychological warfare tactics that made piracy unprofitable and undesirable. But the most significant change wasn't in the problems solved. It was in how species thought about problems. Young Krynians began studying Earth's ecological systems to understand competitive balance. Xinthian traders incorporated human game theory into their negotiations. Delcar diplomats learned human psychological principles to better understand motivation. The galaxy didn't become more human. It became more curious. More willing to ask why, and what if. More ready to try unconventional solutions. More comfortable with failure as a learning tool. The smile that changed everything. Ambassador Chen, now Director Chen of the Problem Solvers Guild, gave a speech at the 10th anniversary celebration. She was older now, her hair touched with gray, but her smile was unchanged. "When humans first joined the Galactic Council," she said, "you were afraid of us. Some of you still are. You see our unpredictability as dangerous, our unconventional thinking as chaotic. And you're not entirely wrong. But I want you to understand something about that human smile that confused you so much." She paused, looking around at the assembled representatives from across the galaxy. "We smile because we're optimistic. Not naively optimistic, we know the universe is dangerous and problems are real. We smile because we genuinely believe that any problem can be solved if you think about it hard enough, try enough approaches, and never give up. We smile because we're excited to face challenges. We smile because we know that today's impossible problem is tomorrow's funny story about how we figured it out." The chamber was silent, but it was a thoughtful silence. The architects tested us with the devourers, expecting us to build better weapons. We gave them chemistry instead. The universe throws challenges at us, expecting us to respond conventionally. We respond with curiosity. And yes, we smile. Because even when things are terrible, even when problems seem impossible, we know something the universe hasn't learned yet. "What's that?" Counselor Vexthar asked softly. Chen's smile widened. "That humans are stubbornly, infuriatingly, unreasonably determined to make things better. And we'll keep trying new approaches until we succeed or run out of universe to try them in. Whichever comes first." The chamber erupted in applause. Not polite diplomatic applause, but genuine, enthusiastic celebration. As the gathering continued, Vexthar approached Chen privately. "You were right," he said. "About humans being dangerous. But you were also right about being dangerous to problems, not to friends." "Thank you, counselor. I have a question, though. After all these years, after all these successes, do you ever stop smiling?" Chen's expression became thoughtful. "Sometimes, when I'm alone and thinking about all the problems still out there. All the suffering we haven't solved yet. All the questions we haven't answered. And then?" Her smile returned, brighter than ever. "And then I remember that we're working on it. And that makes me smile again." Vexthar finally understood. The human smile wasn't arrogance or cruelty or hidden meaning. It was hope weaponized. It was optimism forged into a tool for change. It was humanity's way of saying, "This problem won't defeat us." And the galaxy was learning to smile too.